Hi everyone, it's June 14th. Bit of a damp day, actually, a light rain shower happening right now. Those are the building materials to build the yard for my chickens, fencing and 2x4s. Delivered yesterday, but I think I'm going to wait till later on in the week when we get some dry weather, hopefully, to do the building. So I thought I'd do a little update and show you the progress in the greenhouse and square foot garden and just my other gardens outside here. If you remember last winter, I was standing on top of a pile of snow 4 or 5 feet deep. This is what I was standing on top of. If you recall, last year I planted this lavender bed, and I must say I'm very pleased. They came through the winter beautifully. Just to look at those before we move to the greenhouse. Larger plants are all lavender. The four sort of in a square in the center there, different color green, are curly onions, and in the very center is Lilium canadensis, the Canadian lily, which is 5 or 6 feet tall eventually when it blooms. But these were started from seed a year ago, and it takes 5 to 6 years before they bloom. So anyway, I'm pleased that they made it through their first winter. First, a little look inside of the greenhouse, where instead of grow bags this year I'm using smart pots, which means less plants, which I think is a good idea. There's always been too much in here. And I'm growing a number of varieties of tomatoes, 5 different varieties, 2 from seeds that I saved from last year, the Buckbee's New and the Black Cherry, both heirloom varieties, and 3 more varieties that were given to me by friends on YouTube. From Gary's Garden, I have Stupice, S-T-U-P-I-C-E, not quite sure of the pronunciation. Anyway, it's a Czech variety. And Oregon Spring, which is a crossbreed of a Russian variety and another variety. And I also have from Steen, Matt's Wild Cherry. So that's the 5 varieties of tomatoes that I'm growing. And at the back there you see a couple of peppers. If you watched earlier in the winter, I had a time-lapse photography of one of them growing. And those are capsicum annum, black pearl hot peppers. And also in this grow pot here I have 3 hot peppers of variety that I'm not sure of. That the seeds were all provided by 3XS Lady, which her last name is McCormick, from Alabama. And they're all doing very well. Last year I grew hot peppers. I grew the cayenne pepper. I like to make hot pepper jelly. When I went out in the garden to do the harvesting, some little creature had eaten my peppers. I only had 2 or 3 left. So this year I'm going to grow them inside of the greenhouse and see if I get enough to make hot pepper jelly. Next to it are Tigger melons. And the Tigger melons seeds were given to me by Steen. Now on this tarp out in the back garden, I have 5 smart pots with 1 each of the 5 different varieties of tomatoes, and 6 smart pots that I've just started potatoes in. Irish cobblers. So baking soda in Ireland will get a kick out of that. I'm growing Irish cobblers in Canada. I'm not sure if I've ever eaten Irish cobblers before, but it was the seeds that were available, so I thought I'd give it a try. The tarp idea, the smart pots are supposed to get capillary action from the ground, but I decided I wanted to plant them on a tarp because I'd like to kill the grass that's under this area. So next year I can put another raised bed here. Anyway, the old tarp has holes in it, and whenever it doesn't make any difference, but it's got several places where there is standing water on it, and right now it's a light shower happening, a little bit of rain. So I'm just going to take a knife and go down through the areas with the standing water to see if I can eliminate that. I don't want it to be a breeder of mosquitoes. I have enough without breeding more. There, hopefully that will work. These are the raised beds inside of the rabbit fence where I try to grow crops that the bunnies like to eat. This bed has a few spinach, lettuce, I guess there's some Swiss chard and maybe one or two kale in that first row. And then I think the balance of these squares are mostly Brussels sprouts. There's one or two over at the edges here that aren't Brussels sprouts, or either broccoli or cabbage. I'm not sure which because I got the plants mixed up. But the broccoli that I'm growing this year is an all-season blend from Vessies, so it's a blend of broccolis that should mature at different times. And the same way with the cabbage, I'm growing an all-seasons Vessies blend. And the Brussels sprouts are also from Vessies seeds. They're called Jade Cross. I had great luck with my Brussels sprouts last year. They were a different variety than this, but hopefully they've got a lot more plants. Once frozen, I love the things. I can't say as I like them fresh, but it seems to sweeten them up when you freeze them. And this bed is all cabbage and broccoli, with one asparagus plant that I bought last year, and that's got blossom buds on it, so I may have asparagus seed later on in the year. This bed has a nice row of beans at the back, and they're a baking bean called Ken Early, also from Vessies. They're a tall bean, should grow up this tall trellis at the back here. Next to them are a row of sugar snap peas, and they're a bush variety, so they should only get about 18 inches tall and hopefully won't need any support. And coming next to that is a patch of lettuce, a couple of Italian parsley, a few Florence fennel, and down on the end there are some more kale, and the two patches of white icicle radish, which the leaves are certainly growing nicely. They aren't big enough yet that there be anything under them, but I'm kind of excited about that. I've never grown the white icicle ones before. They're supposed to be fairly large and white but mild. This is the last of the 4 beds in behind the rabbit fencing. There's a mixed row of tall telephone peas and the blue potted peas, just seed that I had left over from last year, but they came up quite well, so I should get a decent sized crop. The next row you can't really see much, I don't think, on the video. They're still very small, but it's a row of beets. The seeds also came from Vessie, called First Crop, and I think most of them have germinated. They're still quite small, but I have hopes anyway. Next to that are 3 squares of spinach, seed that Giardicadian gave me, and they're coming along quite nicely. And then there are a few of my onions, the variety is North Star, and a little bit of garlic that got left in there from last year. And next to that one large plant of Swiss chard is one that overwintered, so I'm kind of hoping that it goes to seed and I be able to collect some seed. Can't see it, and behind that are 2 small beets that overwintered too. They don't seem to be doing much yet, so I didn't like the varieties anyway, so I guess I probably wouldn't be bothered to save seed, but I've left them growing there just to see what happens. Before I take you over and show you the last 3 of the square foot beds, I'll give you a look at this red flowering horse chestnut, which isn't that old of a tree, but it's got a lot of blossoms on it this year. I hope that's showing up. And next to it in the garden is a very showy azalea called Gibraltar, a very bright orange blossom. It shows up from a great distance. This bed has 2 rows of garlic, 2 different varieties, both hardneck varieties. The front row, which is growing much taller, are actually bulbs that I saved from my own garlic and replanted last fall. And the second one is a hardneck variety that just has more cloves that I bought to grow in the garden this year, so I'd have 2 different varieties anyway. And they're both doing quite well. Next to that is a row of onion sets that I bought, the red onions, and they're coming along pretty good. And behind that is another row of sugar snap peas. In this bed I have hopes of a lot of Dill pickles for the winter. Mostly in there is a variety called Cross Country from Vessey's. It's a small pickling cucumber, 16 plants of that. And each of the corner squares have an extra plant in it, and that's the heirloom lemon cucumber. They're very nice. I like them. Very crispy and a bright yellow cucumber. It's a bit different. Anyway, I haven't lost anything in there yet. Normally I get some cutworm or slug damage, but they seem to be doing pretty good, and they're getting to the point where they're starting to get their second and third leaves. And this last bed has another row of the same baking beans that are over behind the rabbit fence. 2 rows of asparagus. I guess you can see the little wispy things up there. This is their first year, so it'll be 2 more years before I can harvest anything, but they all seem to be growing nicely. And the front row here are the onions that I started from seed in the house. The variety is North Star from Bessie Seeds once again, and they are an early variety, so I have hopes of getting a fairly decent sized onion out of them before the end of the summer. Well, I guess that finishes this little update on the greenhouse and the garden. If you're like this, subscribe. There'll be more coming up as the summer progresses. To finish off, just a quick look at my favorite azalea called Rosy Lights. It's really putting on a great show this year. It's up in the garden by the roadside, so people driving by get a look at it. On a nice sunny day with a bit of a breeze, this is several hundred feet from the house. Probably 500 or 600 feet from the house, but if I have the living room windows open, I can smell this in the house. It has a lovely fragrance.